you how I get down when I get locked up. I'm gonna show you how I get down. I'm gonna make them bitches whoop me. They gonna get a charge. I'm gonna make them whoop me. When these cops come out, I'm gonna punch them in their shit. I'm going out like a gangster.
Rapper Boosie Badazz faces a new federal gun charge and finds himself in some deep legal trouble. Attorney Bradford Cohen comes on to discuss the case and how authorities use social media and a helicopter to track the artist down. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, so I'm once again joined by Bradford Cohen, very special guest. This is somebody who represents hip-hop artists, like we said. He used to represent YNW Melly, but he currently represents Kodak Black. I want to talk to you right now about Boosie Badazz, what the situation is there. So the rapper, whose real name is Torrance Hatch, he's been in and out of trouble with the law. He's been previously convicted of drug offenses. He was arrested and hit with a federal gun charge for being a felon in possession of a firearm. And this is quite the story. So apparently, San Diego police were looking at an Instagram video of a known gang member when they noticed Boosie in the video with a black handgun in the waistband of his pants. Okay. So then they check out Boosie's Instagram, and there was a live story being broadcast from a gang associated neighborhood in San Diego. So what do authorities do then? They locate Boosie using an airborne law enforcement unit. Basically, it's a helicopter. And they see him getting into an SUV. They make a traffic stop after the car doesn't stop at a red light. And they find a black gun that matches the description of the one that was in that video. They find it inside the car. He was arrested and charged with a state crime. But this is where the catch. After he's leaving court for an appearance on that state charge, which was actually dismissed, he is arrested and hit with the federal crime. Bradford, what do you think about that?
It's commonplace. I mean,
is it?
You know,
is it? It
yeah,
doesn't
it
sound
really
that common.
Yeah, it really is. Actually, it wasn't surprising to me when it comes to representing entertainers and individuals of note, athletes. I've represented athletes, entertainers, and other politicians. When it comes to those things, the federal authorities, especially when it's surrounding a gun issue, the federal authorities want to pick up those guns. So, for example, I represented Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne was charged with a gun case from a one-time felony conviction from about 15 years ago in New York that he thought was a reduction to a misdemeanor crime. And he was caught. They searched a plane, and they found a weapon on the plane, and they attributed it to him. And he was charged with a felon in possession of a firearm. I ended up getting him a pardon from the president for that charge because of how it was charged and how everything was going on. But that being said, the feds usually wouldn't even pay attention to those charges. The feds usually wouldn't even blink an eye at a felon in possession of a firearm when it's someone with one-time felony or two-time felony. What they're doing is a lot of these artists, they are trying to hammer down on them. If you remember, T.I. got a gun charge back in the day. So what they do is they hammer down on these because these are the most covered issues, right? So they can say, hey, listen, you're a felon with a possession of a firearm. We're going to bring charges just like we brought charges on Bob Smith, Boosie Badazz, Kodak Black. So they try to bring charges against people of note so that they could show the public that what they're doing to curb, gun violence. But it really isn't about gun violence. It's really just about the publicity they get. So I've had plenty of cases where the state charges get dropped and the defendant's all happy. I would imagine that the defense attorney would have seen this coming, but maybe he didn't. But it happens a lot where they drop the state charges. You don't know why they drop them. And a week
Why
later,
why bring it in the first place if they knew they were going to go the federal route?
Because sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's a state case. The state looks at it and they're like, wow, this is a tough case to prove, right? Like in this instance. So they have them on video with a weapon that looks familiar. They'll have some expert that says, oh, it's a Glock 9, and that Glock 9 is the same type of gun that was found in the car. But the state might not have access to those good experts or want to spend the time or money on that case. That the feds, they have unlimited money and they have unlimited time. And a lot of times you'll see the state saying maybe, hey, listen, this isn't a great case for us. But the feds say, hey, it's a great case for us. We'll come in and we'll pull it in. And the feds will do a DNA test on the bullets, a DNA test on the gun, fingerprints, etc. And they'll see if Boosie Badazz's DNA is on the interior of the gun or the bullets, It's a much stronger case than they have right now. But anyway you cut it, look at it. On a state level, you might be looking at 2 or 3 years. On a federal level, because of his priors, he's probably looking at 5 or 6.
Wow.
So the question becomes, do you want to risk going to trial in state court on this case, which is it's a pretty good case in state court because, the difference between the maximum and the minimum is not that much. Or do you want to try and go on a federal level where, you're looking at 5 or 6 years at the bottom and 15 at the top? That's a big risk.
He posted on Twitter saying, "I want to take this time to apologize to my kids. I'm sorry, and I love you all forever." Does this feel like a pretty straightforward case for prosecutors?
There is no such thing in my eyes, at least. So I've had cases where I thought they were pretty straightforward, and then I have a gun charge right now in Tampa that they think is pretty straightforward, and I don't. So there's a lot of cases. This case could be interesting. It depends on the experts that they use. They're usually the same guys that are in every case that say, I work for the FBI. I'm a gun expert. I've been handling guns for 50 years. And that gun is the same gun that's in the other picture. And juries are like, well, if he's been handling gun for 50 years, he must be an expert. It's just interesting. I think the defense has to have their own expert to say whether or not that gun in the video is real or fake. If you could tell if it's real or fake, and how many people were in the vehicle at the time it was stopped.
Well, I'll get your thoughts on this because apparently Mr. Hatch yelled during his processing. He yelled at his security team or security guard and said, "Why did you tell the detective the gun was on the seat?" They wrote this in the charging document, the federal prosecutors, and they go on to say that SDPD, San Diego Police Department officers, heard Hatch tell his security, "You told me they were in the bag." Does that, basically show that he knew about the gun in the car?
Yeah, he could have known about the gun in the car. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's his.
Uh-huh.
So, I've had cases where there was security teams in a car and there was, AK-47s in the trunk. It doesn't, and my client might have known about it, but the problem is that they belong to the security team. So, like I said, there's a lot of things that happen during cases, a lot of statements that are made that some people from the outside might be like, "Holy crap, that's a slam dunk."
Right.
But when you look at it from a defense perspective, it's still a case that they need to prove.
And his attorney, I believe, released a statement and basically said, talked about how he was arrested, then goes on to say, and then after they took him into custody, they announced that they were unprepared to proceed with his detention hearing because the government was ill prepared. Mr. Hatch was forced to cancel a number of shows over this historic Juneteenth weekend, so they're already criticizing the prosecution. Bradford Cohen, thank you so much for taking the time. Really interesting case, and we'd love to have you back here on Sidebar.
Anytime. Thank you so much. And congratulations.
Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it. And that's all we have for you here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.